it's James and Kellee.
What are you up to?
Thinking about changing the world.
Me too. We should do a show together.
What would it be about?
Let me show you.
The James and Kellee Show.
Hi, Kelly.
Happy spring.
Happy spring. Spring is in the air. I think it's across the whole country. Spring is in the air.
Thank God. I love
It's a
spring.
long winter, huh? It's been a long
It was
winter.
a long winter. For me, it was a real long winter.
Yeah, it's
I'm like-
I've never seen before.
I'm like, snow again? It can't possibly be.
I have a whole new wardrobe now, so it's just boots and coats.
Well,
and sweaters.
what's really funny about the wardrobe is with COVID, not much. Like everybody, sweatpants.
Yes, exactly. I spent the week. How was your weekend? You had a good weekend?
I did have a good, my grandkids were here, and they've left now, but I had a wonderful, wonderful week off. It was great.
Great.
Tell me about your weekend, because I know it was exciting.
Yes, it was thrilling. Actually, I went to Santa Barbara to see a friend and his wife, and it was interesting because in Santa Barbara it was very open, and I was not used to people, so it was a little bit of a shock at first. I had to go back to the hotel room and reground myself. I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this yet, and all wineries and restaurants, and young kids, and I'm like, oh, so. It was fine after I got used to it, adapted to it, but I was happy to get home.
I was going to say it's like acclimating to something.
You pushed into it. It's like, wait a minute, you got to go slowly, hit baby steps, because it's really intense.
Well, I think we're all going to go through that.
We are. So I would suggest everybody do it slowly. Maybe go to a parking lot of a Target and hang out there for a little bit with people, or I don't know. But
actually, that's not a bad idea.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of people at once, so just slowly adapt yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. So we have an interesting show today, don't we?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yes,
I get asked this a lot.
You and myself, and I mean, well, it's not the number one question, but it's up there. It's probably the top five. Well, top three. What happens when you die? Physical death.
What happens?
I don't know.
James, I have a friend of mine asked a great question. And do you mind if I read this question?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a lot to talk about.
I have a lot of stuff to talk about with research and so forth.
A lot of research. But my friend of mine wrote, and he said, how important is it for you to be fully conscious when you pass over? He said, let's say you have a terminal illness and your doctor has you on opioids due to intolerable pain. Is there a possibility of going down some dark spiritual rabbit hole due to heavy sedation?
The answer to that is no, because the spirit is not affected physically of that at all. And normally what happens physically to the body, it starts slowing down. It starts slowing down depending on the type of position, the situation, the illness, or whatever it might be. It starts slowing down, could be weeks before, a month to weeks before, and each system starts slowing down in its turn. And there's a sense of losing energy, getting tired very easily, hard to move from the chair to the bed, not eating as much, losing your appetite, losing your sense of what's important, like the news events and the activities during the day that stepped aside. There's a natural sense of slowing down. And I've been reading this before about terminal illness, so forth. And a lot of people, I'd say probably the majority percentage of the world when they're passing over, are usually those who are on some kind of morphine or something to help them at the final stages, probably terminal illness. And I find that, it's as I talked to earlier, a friend of mine did a reading for this weekend, and his son came through, and the thing he said about death, which 40 years I've done this, he said something I've never heard before. He said it was slipping out of an envelope. That's the only I can describe. It was so easy. It was just slipping out of an envelope. And there are ways that we can be conscious of our passing if that's our journey, that we're going to be aware, or it could be quick. But we can prepare for it as well. We can prepare for our death. There are ways of doing breathing exercises, visualizations. There are things you can do to prepare for that final time. But just slowing down. And the one thing about death, no one has to fear it because there's no pain in death. There's no pain whatsoever. There may be pain leading up to it, depending on the type of condition you have. A terminal illness might be painful, of course. But there are medications for that doctors have brought through from the spirit world, of course, have influenced them to come up with these medications that can help to ease the pain. There should be no pain. I believe that very firmly. There
Right.
should be no pain in physical life. There just shouldn't be. I don't think anybody should suffer either. I don't think we're meant to suffer.
Mhm.
So I know that my father, with his passing, he had pneumonia, and this happens quite often. People tend to get better right before they pass over. So a lot of
Yeah.
people get better. Oh, she's sleeping great, or they tell my father, oh, he's doing really well. The next thing, an hour later, they said he's going to pass away because his pneumonia's gone to the next lung. Happens
Wow.
quite often that there's a quickening or
Yeah.
alertness, and then they go down.
Yeah.
But no one needs to fear death whatsoever. It's we've done it thousands, 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 hundreds of thousands of times before. We do it every night. We go to sleep. We leave our spirit leaves our body every night. We go to sleep, not conscious of it necessarily, but we do. And at the time of our passing, it's a natural. I guess it was a natural stage, if you will.
I've had many readings where people who have died suddenly, they have already left their body, so they didn't feel any pain of a car crash or a plane accident. And people always ask me about that. They don't feel it. They've already left.
Kelly, that's such a great one because it's so true. From the spirit world, there are no accidents because the spirit
Right.
world, they prepare for your coming over there. There are no accidents. They know when your time is up. And the human level might appear as an accident per se, but not in the spirit. They prepare for every single person's passing over. And we
Right.
have to prepare our minds for that eventual time to go home. And I would say, make sure you cleaned everything up in your life, that you left no loose ends, no unfinished business.
Right.
And at least that's where I want to be. I know that. And I think that's a good thing to do. It's something to look forward to. I look forward
Oh,
to it.
yeah. And you're not going yet, James.
I know. I say that every day. People say, I'm getting ready.
No, no, no.
No.
But my mother, before my mother passed, I said to her a few days before, and anybody can do this. I said, Mom, who would you like to come and get you when you pass? I asked her because somebody is going to come and get you. I said, do you want your mother? She said, oh, no. I said, would you like your father? She loved her father. She said, no. I started naming other people and I said, well, who would you want to come and get you? And she said, I want your father, which was floored me because they'd been divorced for 40 something years. And I said, why would you want Lee to come and get you? And she said, because he didn't fear anything. He was this most fearless man I ever knew. And my mother feared death.
I was going to say she did fear death. It's amazing. She really
Feared
and
death.
she hung on for quite a long
Oh,
time. And that's
oh,
probably she was scared, Kelly. She was
she was
fearful.
scared.
That's what kept her here. I remember that. I remember when she passed. She came to me in an airplane. I remember that very well.
I
But
think she flew up with my dad and went right to you.
it's very interesting. People ask who's going to come get you, and really what it is it's a sense of I guess from what I've been told, the bonds of love, that energy we've created on the earth and other lifetimes and people you've met along the way, whether you remember them or not. Those who you've touched, lives you've touched, will greet you. My friend Olivia was very close. I think you
Yeah.
met Olivia Mel,
Hmm.
and we had this agreement that whoever goes first comes back right away and tells the other what it's really like. And of course, well, she went first, and I'm driving down the street, and she comes to my car, the windshield, and I said, Olivia, you better not be dead. And she says, I'm alive. You're the dead one. Only go home and find out from an email from her daughter that she just passed.
Wow.
And she said to me, she showed me, if you will, that when she left, she was, now this is someone who's been in metaphysics for years,
Yeah.
development circles, healing for years. And she said, it was quite astonishing. She said, it was quite astonishing. I didn't expect this. She said, it was so easy. She said, it was if I went to a movie theater and I walked into the theater and there were all these chairs and seats filled with people and they were looking up at the screen. And I just walked into the screen and those people were kind of just sleeping, but I was alive and all the flowers were growing so tall. And I was met by all of these people. And she said, everyone whose lives I touched, in a little way, I opened the door for, I smiled, I did a kindness for. They came to greet me. They came to
Wow.
celebrate my coming home. And she said, James, that's what it's like.
Wow. How lovely.
So no one
How
needs to fear.
peaceful.
Very peaceful. There's a wonderful medium that people should, if they want to know more about life after death. Leslie Flint was one of the top physical mediums of the 20th century. And I was fortunate to sit with Leslie 3 times in a seance room. Very different than mental mediumship. In physical mediumship, they use an energy called ectoplasm, and it comes out of the ears, the nose, mouth, and the spirit people form a voice box, an artificial voice box. And the spirit will send, if you will, send thoughts into that voice box, and it comes out vibrating, sounding like their voice that it did on the earth in the seance room. So there is and I've had great time with Leslie, it's a whole other show, but there is, thank God, there was a couple of researchers that did taped every single one of these seances. And thank God they did it from the 40s to the 60s. And Rudolph Valentino comes through, Queen Victoria comes through, Oscar Wilde comes through, some great ones. So it's Leslie Flint, LESLIEFLYNT, leslieflint.com. And you can listen to these voices from the spirit, and I'll tell you what their passing was like. And there was one lady who I just remember really quickly, if I just add this to it. They asked how she found herself when she passed. And it was a Scottish woman. She goes, "Oh, it was all kind of strange. It was very strange. I was watching my television, and she goes, next thing I know, I'm gone, and I'm looking down, and there's my body sitting there. I said, I didn't understand this. And then I'm in a bed, and said, I guess you could say it's a hospital. And there was a wee little one over there looking at me. I said, what's happened to you? She goes, I died of diphtheria. And she goes, I'm not dead. She goes, yes, you are. I'm dead, you're dead. Just it's all very strange. She goes, and next thing you know, my sister Mary came through the doors. Now, Mary, I hadn't seen her for years because she was dead. I said, Mary, but you're dead. And she goes, Kate, you're dead too. I'm wearing this dress, and my favorite dress. And my sister made it for me with her thoughts. She said, calm down, rest, and in time you'll rest, and then you'll meet the family, but you need to rest. But she said, no one needs to fear at all. It's a natural passing. So Leslie Flint, everyone should go listen to these tapes, and it'll reassure you. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to tell everybody what our friend Jordy said today because it was so interesting. You want to explain who Jordy
So
is?
Jordy is an Earth guide of mine, and I met Jordy on a cruise I was doing from the Mediterranean, I believe, my first cruise, the first cruise. And I was with my partner Brian at the time, and we're going up the gangplank to go in, and I just happened to turn around behind me, and this lady with these beautiful green eyes and just energy was like, I said, "Hi, how are you?" She goes, "I'm great. I'm here for you." I said, "Oh, great." And she goes, "I made it. My clothes didn't, but that's okay. I can wear the same thing every day. It doesn't matter." So I turned to Brian, my partner, and said, "We're hanging out with this lady. She's got a great perspective on
Yeah.
things." And that was the beginning of the wonderful Jordy world, because lovely spiritual teacher and Jordy's great. And Jordy had a son that passed, and that's how we met. And she that on that cruise actually came through in a reading. And I remember one of the things he brought through the evidence. I said, "Hey, some of you have a T-shirt of his with a hole in it." And she said, "I do." And she pulls it out of her pocket. There it was. But
It was, she's so interesting. It's such an old, wise soul. And hi, Jordy, if you're listening. And she gave me permission to tell this story today, which I couldn't wait to share with you and with everybody because it was such an interesting way of passing that I had never heard before. But when her beloved son did pass away, it was a few years ago, a month after he passed, she was sitting in a deep meditation and he came to her and he said, I'm going to show you how I passed. Would you like to have the experience? And she said, yes, I would. And he said, okay. And she said, first, this beautiful green crystal light of healing came through, like a tunnel of green healing. The color of green, she said, I've never experienced before. It was like reflecting of crystals. And she said, I knew immediately that there was no time here when I was in this tunnel. She said, I knew there was only beginnings. And she said, there was no fear and it felt so good. And then she said, it my son described it to me as, when you have packing and you have those little pops when you're packing a package and you've got those little pops of
sure.
plastic, kind of like. She said he explained to her that when he passed, it was he could feel the pack of his soul unpacking to leave his body,
Like that bubble
the
popping.
bubble popping, and then his soul was released. Never heard that before.
And I haven't either. And there is actually some people have described like a popping sound too, by the way. That's been known that healthcare workers have heard sometimes popping when someone leaves the body. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Isn't that something?
It really is. It really is. Again, it's a part of life, and we've done it many, many
Mhm.
times. I was looking for some books that I was researching for tonight, and I came across this wonderful book called The Zen of Living and Dying.
Ooh,
Yes, I've had this for years.
a practical and spiritual guide. Wow.
It's very, very good. And I just wanted to read a little bit about embracing your death, if I might. So reflect on the words of a Zen master. Your mind essence is not subject to birth or death. It is neither being nor nothingness, neither emptiness nor form and color, nor is it something that feels pain or joy. However, much you try to know with your rational mind that which is now sick, you cannot. Yet, if you think of nothing, wish for nothing, want, understand nothing, cling to nothing, and only ask yourself, what is the true substance of the mind of this one who is now suffering? And ending your days like clouds fading in the sky, you'll eventually be freed of your painful bondage to endless change. So it's imagine yourself then fading away slowly, very slowly, until you remember less and less, and allow a peaceful, relaxed feeling to take over, not in a hurry, but slowly.
Oh, I love that. Sounds relaxing.
Yeah, and I was
Sign
thinking
me up.
we have to do a show about preparing to die, right? We got to do a show about that.
Right. About preparing, absolutely.
I,
Um,
I
it,
remember a story, if I may share, Cal. It's Debbie Ford when she passed over.
oh, you got to share this one.
Such a
This is
great
a
story.
beauty. This
I put this in a
unbelievable.
photo. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. About a year and a half before she passed, we did an event in New York together. And she asked me, said, James, can I talk to you? I said, yes. I went to her room. And she said, would you help me pass over when it's my time? Would you help me, please, if I have problems? I said, of course, Deb, of course. Wherever I am, I will help you. Long story short, she was in San Diego and I was in, I don't know where, somewhere else in California. And she was ready to pass. And her sister said she probably has 48 hours. Debbie was very stubborn. She made it 72 hours, right? But around 4:15 in the afternoon, 3 days later, I was in my office and I felt her strong. I felt her suffering, and I tuned into her in a meditative state. And I said, Deb, stop, stop. She goes, I'm afraid, Jane. I'm afraid. I said, you've done to be afraid of. She goes, I don't understand this. It's like having a new car, but wait, having keys to a new car, but I don't know how to drive.
Oh,
And I said, Deb, just relax, just relax. And I picked up her father was there and a friend who had died of AIDS in Miami was there. And her sister later said, yes, that's someone she knew. And it was really interesting, Debbie. And I remember the spirit just getting this. I said, make yourself a feather. Just be your feather, just light, just relax and inhale, breathe, inhalation, slowly, and exhalation. And like a feather, lifting up, then go down, lifting up, go down. And she says, will that help us? Yes. And go towards like if there's a light, go towards it. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Go to Oz and enjoy yourself. It's gonna be great. I'm scared. You have nothing to be scared. They're all there, and it's natural. It's light. So she said, "Okay, James, I love you." I said, "I love you too." Probably an hour later, I go into the house and I'm sitting with watching television. I think news at 6 o'clock, and I felt freezing cold, cold feeling, freezing cold, glacier type cold. And I said, "Oh, Debbie's just passed." And my partner Brian came in the room and he said, told double Virgo something. He said, do you have a door open? I said, no, Debbie Ford just passed. He goes, no, you have a door open. So of course, I light on. And he goes into the living room, checks, and goes, oh, he doesn't have a door. Oh, Debbie, we love you, Debbie. The phone rings, and it was Debbie's sister, and she said, Deb just passed.
wow.
So
Wow.
sometimes people need encouragement to pass over.
Yes.
They're afraid, like your mom, or like
Mhm.
my dad. My dad was really, it was interesting on his deathbed. It was so funny. All the siblings were there, and we all said our goodbyes, and he wouldn't leave. And I saw his spirit right here hanging out above his head. I was very aware of it. He didn't believe in what I did, by the way. He never believed, he didn't know about my life, my work. He knew about it. He watched me on television and so forth, but he didn't believe in it. So there you
Mm.
go. So I said, Dad, why are you hanging out? I'm speaking to him telepathically. And he said, I just don't want your kids fighting over the house. And his house was everything to him.
Oh,
And as soon as we agreed not to fight over the house, he left. He left. And he came back within, I would say, gosh, 5 minutes. He said, you got it right. You're right. I'm alive. I'm alive. You're right. I met your mother. I'm 27 years old. I had a brown suit. I met a sister I didn't know I had, which he did have, And for 3 days, I was doing automatic writing with them. But
wow.
amazing
Wow.
stuff.
And
Amazing.
isn't it amazing that, and I hear this from so many people that have had this experience. They're in the room with their loved one, and their loved one, is not passing away. Then what loved one is with them, and then they get up to go to the bathroom. Loved one leaves. Let's talk about that for a minute because so many people get so upset. I wasn't there, and I'm like, you weren't supposed to be there. She didn't want you there. She wanted to leave. You were holding her down, holding her back.
So, well, number one, the Cemetery Club. Everybody should watch that. Incredible, the Cemetery Club. Libby Dukakis talks about this.
I've never seen that.
Oh, Kelly, you'll love it. You'll
Okay.
Libby
I'm
Dukakis
gonna
is
write
great.
it down. We'll watch
It's
it tonight,
great.
John.
Cemetery Club.
Cemetery Club. Okay.
So think of it this way. I think that we come into this life alone, and we prefer to leave alone. And that's really what I believe. That's the way it is. I think we come in alone, and our spirit wants to leave alone. That's the way it is. So yeah, it's. I'm trying to remember this old. I think it was Apache, a saying which I put in one of my books, and it said something like, when we're born, we are crying and everybody else is happy, and when we pass over, we're happy and everyone else is crying.
Yeah, so
That's
true.
true. But we do pass by ourselves. We don't. Yeah, and have my father went to visit my mother in the hospital, in the nursing home, and he was going down. We finished, went down the elevator. My sister Maura was coming up the elevator. She went. My mother was dead. So between those 5 minutes, she went.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote here, she said, I don't want to get stuck here. Now let's talk about getting stuck.
Okay. Well,
I get stuck. No stuck.
yeah.
I'm not going to get stuck.
I worked with Gordon Smith, who's a medium from
Hmm.
Scotland, wonderful medium, and he
Yeah.
had a great response to it. The audience member who said, "What earthbound spirits?" And he goes, "Oh, please." He goes, "We're earthbound. We're stuck here. We're earthbound. Think they're going to stay here? They're not going to." And part of me believes that. I mean, listen, evolve. My belief systems have changed and evolved, and I came with Ghost Whisperer, and
Right.
that was people that are stuck. We're not stuck. We're hanging down to this level to finish some stuff up. Now, does that happen? I think it does. I think to some degree it does. For instance, there might be a mother who dies in childbirth, and her mindset, she might think, I could be better for my daughter if I'm close to her on the earth.
Right, right.
Not true. Better in the
Yeah.
spirit world, she'd be able to do more and inspire her more. And a man who gets hit by a train and he passes out by, oh my God, I got to tell my wife what the insurance policy is. So he won't leave necessarily until
Interesting.
just like the movie Ghost. So I
Yes.
think that sometimes that is clear. I think that it's a great book called The Testimony of Light by Helen Greaves. Because the exact thing, The Testimony of Light, about a lady who doesn't realize she's passed over and she lives in this cottage.
Ooh, that's a
It's
good testimony of light. I have to
testimony of
look that one up.
and it's interesting because the spirit people come to get everybody. They do. They come to greet you. But
Right.
if the person has a mindset which is holding them back in a certain limitation, they won't see the spirit world. They're not there because they're in that mindset of I got to stay here and close to the earth. So that does happen. Are they earthbound? Not necessarily. I mean, why the hell would they want to stay down here when there's all this loving, incredible home energy, people who love you there? So
Exactly.
that's very much the human mind says that, and of course,
Right.
movies and TV shows have created that the fear about death. But no, you don't get earth. And most people do not. We don't get
Yeah.
stuck per se. And that's like the rescue circles years ago. I mean, I think they still exist. That mediums or would get together. Some people that do circles, healing circles, to
Oh.
help those earthbound spirits, the rescue circles.
Oh.
I just don't get it. For me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. What do you think of doctor-assisted suicide? Or I don't even, is it called that? Doctor-assisted.
Oh, you saw the working days. In
Yeah.
California, we're allowed to leave when we want now. Um, well, I see. You don't now. You really don't need a doctor. Well, I guess you could, but you can do it yourself, I guess.
Oh,
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Until, like I said earlier, there's no pain. Should be no pain, no suffering. And I think that suicide itself has a bad rap. I really do. But I think it's great if someone's in their 80s or 70s and 80s and suffering with terminal illness and pain. I think it's the best thing to do. I really do. My friend Olivia did it. She
yeah.
went and fentanyl. She took fentanyl. And the worst part about it was her daughter, who was came from Australia. She, oh, James, I feel so bad. I said, why do you feel bad? She goes, well, my mother's favorite drink was this malt liquor. I said, yes. And she goes, well, last time I was here, I drank the last bit and I put the bottle back. And I know that the last thing she did was go get the malt liquor, and there wasn't any amount left because the bottle was on the counter. I said, oh,
Oh my God.
you're bad.
Oh, that's,
But
oh
I'm
my
all for
gosh.
it. I'm all for it. I really am. When the
Yeah.
soul is done here, I think it's done. And I think you can't cut school early. You can't do that. This is really it's a gift, life. But I think no suffering. And those who complete suicide earlier in the nation tend to come back earlier. And those who die young, by the way, those who tend to die young in age tend to come back earlier. Just like our friend we were speaking to last week before, Jane, who talked about World War II and her memory, strong memory she had of that.
That was fascinating.
That's fascinating. She's a
Yes.
wonderful lady, and she told Kelly and myself that she knows about reincarnation, reincarnation, and she knows she had a memory of, I guess, being on a train, all right, and being on a train and being
During World
separated
War II.
in World War II, Nazi Germany, went on the train to camps, and what happened was she was, I guess, going out with a group of people, and she said to these people, she's a little girl, there's more of us than them. Come on, we can get them. And she starts running, and they shoot her, and that's how she died. And she came back like 3 or 4 years later, like 43 or something. Yeah, pretty amazing
And
story.
I think you mentioned that there were a group of people that had come back
Yes,
that had
yes,
died. I guess there's some interesting, I don't know if there's information about it. It was fascinating to me.
yes. It tends to people that who have gone over there that have tended to come back already.
Yeah.
Late
They
40s.
came back soon. And then a lot of these people had a great anxiety about living.
This is very true. And same, by the way, 9/11. A lot of people have come back
Oh,
already from 9/11.
you think so? That's amazing.
Oh yeah, my sister's daughter has students, and they talk about 9/11. Students, young kids, and they talk about being aware of 9/11. Several of them, and they live in Long Island, which is interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they'll come back, of course. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Barbara has
Gosh.
a question about her son that has passed. Okay.
Uh, let's see.
I
Let's.
have Renee. You want to get Barbara on the phone? That's fine.
Oh,
Hi. Yes, we can most certainly take a call. I have, let me see, Aiko. Aiko, you're
Call,
live on the
call.
show.
Yes. I have a question. Yes.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Yes, I died, and I was told that I had to come back. That I couldn't come back to home until I had completed what I was sent here to do. But they didn't tell me what that was.
Wow. So what you need to do, of course, Renee, you can turn that off now. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll answer your question. We'll answer your question. What happens? What men's do now? What's the mission? The rest of the mission, I would say, is to meditate, still the mind, and go within to your soul and find out what is needed to be done. And that's really, it's a reflection. It's a time for you to go deep within, maybe learn to be still. That's part of the mission. And
well, I was going to say, and part of that mission too could be, patience. And all of a sudden, things start to move in a direction that you would have never anticipated had you not been in a real patient place. So you may not know what the soul is here yet, but I assure you, you will find out.
Thank you, Renee. So we're going to we'll turn call off. I had a near-death experience. Kelly, you know this about.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wrote about it in one of my books. I think Adventures of the Soul. I think back about 15 years ago, maybe it was. I don't remember. It was November. I remember that. I was in Los Angeles. I was staying up there because I was working on, I think it was Ghost Whisperer, and I was staying there, a condo that CVS provided. And I remember I went out the night before and had a meal with a friend of mine and had a couple glasses of wine. And I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was retching. Oh, the wine didn't settle with me, and I just threw up. And I found that every half hour I would again need to do that. So I thought I have to get home. And I lived in Laguna Beach, and which is about an hour and a half drive south. So I got in my car and started driving down south. And every other exit I had to get off and throw up. Okay, it's probably 12 o'clock then in the afternoon. I get home, and again every half hour or 40 minutes, again I was fine. So my partner Brian came over to my house after he got out of work around 5, and he said, I told him what happened. He said, you got to go to the hospital. I said, I don't want to go to the hospital. He goes, you got to go. I went into the bathroom, and then again, my head hit the counter, and it went out of the body. Went right out of the body. Painless, by the way. I was out of the body, looking down at my body, which was blood all around from blood came out of my mouth, and it looked like a murder scene. And I'm like, wait a minute. This can't be. I'm not supposed to go yet. What is this about? What is this about? And I saw my cousin Patricia, who died from completing suicide, by the way, who taught me about physics when I was a kid. And I said, can you help me out? Because I need to know what's going over. I'm not ready to go over. Can you help me here? She goes, yes, it'll be all over soon. Not over, but it'll be over. Okay, whatever. At that time, I had an awareness that every single person, again, I was out of time. There was no time. Like George had no time, no linear sense of that. And I became one with everything. I know that. I had a sense that every single person has above their head this cord, if you will, that's attached to like a tapestry that were all attached to tapestry, and I knew that every thought we had, every action, there would be color from that cord going into that tapestry. We feed our experience into that tapestry, and it painted the tapestry accordingly. So I knew we had to be responsible for what went into that tapestry. So I was aware that. Next thing I know, the scene shifted. I'm in a garden. My father is there, and I go toward him. I said, "Dad," and he said, "Here," and he gave me a flower. He said, "It's not your time yet. You have to go back." And before I knew it, I was back in my body and my head was hurting. And Brian was saying, "Wake up, James, wake up." And I opened my eyes, and the first words out of my mouth was, "Dying is easy, living is hard."
Oh my gosh. Wow. So it was an
It
easy
was a
experience.
Mallet tear. Yeah, it was a tear of the esophagus and those 5
Wow.
pints of blood. It's 5 pints of blood. So, yeah.
Did you get to the hospital then?
I did, which was 2 blocks away, but I called 911. And these hunky ambulance guys came. I'm like, okay, I'm like, "Can't be dead yet." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "You need to walk to the ambulance." I said, "Excuse me, we got to see that you can walk." Okay. I'm like, "Well, then what's I need you guys for?"
Oh my God. You're
Yeah.
right. Living is hard.
But it was really interesting because I couldn't eat for a long time, and I couldn't eat. And I remember I had to learn patience because my roommate was an 85-year-old man who had senility, and he would drop his earpiece, his hearing aid in the middle of the night, and it was just all hell broke loose. So nurses, thank God, she knew who I was, and I said, pain medicine." Okay, I couldn't take him.
Oh my God.
Well, he was
That's
well. Thanksgiving Day, his family came in and burned some turkey, and of course, I couldn't eat. And after they left, he said, "Eat turkey," and goes, "You can have it." My God, nurse.
I want to go back on the other side. Take me now. So Mariel G says, what is the best way to prepare emotionally and psychologically, spiritually for the passing?
Well, I'm glad that she asked. I have the answers right here.
Yay.
I also want to talk about what the earliest signs a person's going to die in, because that's a pretty good one.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of anxiety about death, and I think
Oh,
each one of us have to really have our own relationship with what death is, and learn about it is a great way we're doing tonight. But people should learn more about it, read books on it, and learn more, educate yourself. There's nothing to be afraid of. That's the human part of us. So that's first thing, is to prepare yourself with a knowledge and awareness.
right.
And I would say also get into meditation. I think it's great. I think when you're terminally ill and you're going to prepare that way, you want to be eased. You want to ease up. That's where you have to pass over. It's like I said to Debbie before, be at ease, lightness of being. That's really where you want to. You don't want to be anxious about it, because it's be anxious about it. It's soft, not hard. It's soft.
Right.
So educate yourself as much as you can. Talk to as many people as you can. Read books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We die a little every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's cells that die off every day and are born every day. So one thing I wanted to talk about, Kelly, which I thought we'd do about this past 2 weeks, it won't leave my brain. Those things that you have to keep on talking about won't leave you. So
Yes.
stay there until it's done.
Oh, you bet.
When I was thinking about the show tonight, that same thing came to me, which was life is about movement. Energy is moving. Life is all moving, always moving. Never should stop. It never should be stunted or stand still or blocked, because life's about movement. It's all movement. Energy moving. You can't stop energy. And so that's life. And we hold on to attachments of certain things, whether it's emotional or physical or mental, or not being able to forgive somebody, perhaps, whatever it might be. Those are blocking the energy. That blocks the energy from moving. And people only
So
realize.
then one of the ways to prepare would be to start looking at anything that you've held on to, maybe.
Exactly. Begin to have a reflection of your life.
Which
Assess
you
your
don't
life.
have to prepare to die to have that. You can start that at any time.
Exactly. And I would say also, based upon the work that you and I do, I would say really make amends with everyone that you still have some openings with. Really, you have to do that. You don't want to bring that over to the other side. You do not want to bring it over to the mental world. This is a physical world, but the spirit realms are mental, so it's all thought. So you don't want those thoughts there. You don't, because you'll be outside of time. You don't want that. So make sure you make amends and take the high road. Really take the high road, because that's a spiritual thing to do. It really is. You never know why someone does something, why they behave a certain way. You know what their background is. You know what?
You don't know where their trauma came from.
Exactly. So you gotta take the high road. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I look forward to it. I really do. I look forward to stepping out of this body. I've never once in 40 years had a spirit come back and say, I really miss that body. I really miss that diseased, ill body. I really miss the pain and stuff. Not
Right.
once.
Yeah.
Not once.
Yeah.
So,
It's
and I
so
worked in
true.
a hospital for many years, and I was with an AIDS ward, the first AIDS ward in Los Angeles. So
Wow.
sixth floor Midway Hospital. You know that Midway
I
Hospital.
sure do. Yeah.
I remember, and I also worked at APLA as part of Los Angeles. I was a volunteer there. I worked with a lot of hospice, a lot of people who were preparing their journey before I did the work I'm doing. And they would often say that they'd have dreams of their loved ones days or months before. And that happened quite a bit. It's very, very common to see loved ones, people you haven't seen in your life for a long time. They come into your mind. So all these types of things. My father said to me, interesting, he said, James, I was on a train ride with your mother, but you can't go. You're not allowed on the train, but it's my train. I said, okay, Dad. And of course, he died a month later. But those sorts of things.
Interesting. I've heard the modality of a train a lot from the other side. It almost makes me think that when you finally release the soul, that you hop on a train somewhere.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
it. There's a wonderful book also, which I have, which reminds me of the train because it's called The Guide for the Nearly Departed.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
I have
sorry,
to
I
get
don't have
this
the
one.
name of the author, but it's Guide for the Nearly Departed. Yeah, the recently departed. Guide for the recently departed. And it's a man standing at a railway station. Railroad station. And he's taking his train, waiting for the train. He's there with his suitcase. Yeah, Guide for the Nearly Departed.
Oh
Great
my
book.
God.
Really good book. Talks about exactly what we're
Wow.
talking
My
about.
stepmother was when she was married to my father passed away, and he was a professional trumpet player. And the night he died, my stepmother was in the living room and very sad. And she looked up, and there she saw my father walk out the front door holding his trumpet case. Walked right out, and he turned to her and he smiled, and he went like this with his heart, and then he walked off.
Perfect.
Is that
Perfect.
something? Yeah,
It happens quite a lot. That's
it
right.
does.
It really does. I remember I think it was your aunt who came. Your mother she was dying, really. She was terrible. And I think it was, I said
It
your
was
name,
her cousin.
cousin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who was there for waiting for her too. Yeah, that
yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of things here I just want to talk about. Well, another great book, After We Die, What Then, by George Meek. It's the Bible, they said it. One of the first books I ever read since doing my work. And it really goes into detail about what it's like to go in different stages upon leaving the body, after communication through mediumistic persons, um, spirit world, it looks like. It talks about spirit doctors, guides, so forth. Good book, After We Die, What Then? So it's a good
Wow.
class. Yeah.
I mean,
So
all of these are great to to read. I mean, it just gets you prepared. It gets you thinking. It takes away fear.
yeah, and I tend to build my truth based upon all the experience I've had. There are common
Yeah.
experiences. That's how I build my truth. So I have to have these common experiences. And the ones I do with the spirit world has told me about passing over and life after death has really been the same. So consistent with all the books I've read on the topic. Consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too, James. Um, do we get signs about someone who is about to die? Now, that's a great question. That's from Kilo Marcados Henderson. Do we get signs about someone who is about to die? I had an aunt die, and right before I saw a dead bird. Oh boy, our dog brought a dead bird into the house today.
My
Oh
mother always said
boy.
birds means someone's passing over.
Yeah.
Anything that knocks on the roof as well. I, I'm sorry, Ted. I'm just going to a couple of things here. I want to. How can you prepare for death? Sorry, I mentioned this earlier. Firstly, there is your frame of mind. In thinking about death, it helps to compare it to birth. The time of dying is like birth. It can happen over a day or two, but it's actually the time leading up to it that is the most
Yeah.
critical part of the equation. With birth, what happens is the nine months leading to the day the baby is born. From doctor's appointments to birth classes can make a huge difference. And the same, absolutely similar when someone is facing the end of life. It's better understanding the dying process can help us stop treating death as a medical problem to be fixed. Instead, as inevitably that should be as comfortable and peaceful as possible. And he suggests also learning as much as you can about the death process. Really what he said. And I'm sorry, the question that she asked was,
Uh,
friends
it
are
was.
come
It. Let's see. Where did it go? Hold on a minute. It was a good one. Oh, do we get signs about someone who's about to die? Like she saw a dead, her aunt,
Many
right
times.
before her aunt died, she saw a dead
Dreams,
bird.
people have premonitions,
Yeah.
precognitive dreams. They'll have it that someone's going to pass over. Sure enough, or they have a feeling about that, or they do have a dream about
Yeah.
that. Yes, very much so. Yes, very much so. Yeah, I think if you're allowed to, I think there are certain things that are hidden that you're not allowed to. So, like for instance, if it's a because there's something you can know they're going to pass over, but something you're not supposed to because whatever that means,
Right.
karmically or something you don't want to get involved there. But
I always have people will say to me during readings, when will so and so pass, or when, if they have an illness or something, when will, and I'll say that's between God and the soul. I really don't. I'm
exactly,
not gonna. I have
exactly.
no idea.
We can't play God. No, we can't play God. That's an unfair question.
Right.
God, how do we know? You know, I mean, you never know the person's. I think there are destiny points. I think we're born at a certain time, no doubt about it. And I think we go at a certain time. Now, I also think that there might be some influence. I don't know what you think about this, Kelly. There might be some influences to your passing away. For instance, if you have a healthy body, but you destroy it with alcohol or drugs or a lifestyle, that could make it dying earlier. I would
Yes.
say. Or the way, if you put yourself in danger by going to a violent place, that could get you killed. Yes. So there's free will involved there. I mean, there's a destiny point for the time you're going to go, but there's also free will. If you choose to, drink before you get in that car and you killed it, driving drunk, well, you made that choice.
Right. That's so true. Mariel Mullihill says, a few days before my husband died, I had dreams all my teeth were falling out. Was that a sign? Well, Mary, I mean, how I can answer that one.
We've talked about teeth
We were
before.
just talking about teeth. I mean, teeth represent anger, frustration. Were you upset with your husband? Deeply worried, deeply angry?
Anger, right?
Some deep emotion there with your husband. Sorry that happened.
And that was before he passed.
Hmm.
So it might have been also trying to deal with your anger before he passed. Really,
You bet. You bet.
I wanted to read this. What are the early signs that a person is going to die? The point of no return, when a person begins deteriorating towards their final breath, can start weeks or months before someone dies. Professor Bogley says refractory symptoms, stubborn and irreversible despite medical treatment, offer the earliest signs that the dying process is beginning. Breathlessness, severe appetite and weight loss, fluid retention, fatigue, drowsiness, delirium, jaundice, and nausea, and an overall drop in physical function. Simple actions such as going from bed to a chair can become exhausting. A dying person often starts to withdraw from the news, I mentioned earlier, some activities and other people, to talk less or have trouble with conversation, and to sleep more. This all ties in with a drop in energy levels caused by deterioration in the body's brain function and metabolic process.
Mm.
There's all these
And
systems that
what is the soul doing at that point, James?
the soul's preparing to go. The soul is
So the
preparing.
body is getting weaker, and the
Yeah,
soul is. Do you
kind of
think the
preparing.
soul is spending time on the other side?
Without a doubt. I think the soul does that. I think that as we get closer to that time, I think the soul will get out of the body. It's definitely months before. Yeah. Just like, by the way, in birth, that the soul who comes to that baby,
Right.
they go out of the soul leaves that body, doesn't stay there 9 months, usually goes out. Usually it visits probably in 6 months. It'll go in and check it out and hang out there, then goes out. 7th month more, 8th a little bit more, 9th, it's got to stay in there. But it does tend to go out to the 11th month, and it goes out to the top of the head, and that's the soft spot, the last place to come together.
And the soft spot is where the soul is
That's right.
connected.
The crown chakra, it leaves that way. It always leaves that way. That's why sometimes we're sleeping, we're going to sleep, and we shake, we come back. Because
Right.
you haven't leave the correct access to the crown chakra. You're not leaving straight up, you're off to the side. So you come back in and relaunch.
And we launch.
Yeah, relaunch. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see.
I
Are
want to
those? Go ahead.
how long does the dying take? Is it painful? There you go. UNSW professor of intensive care, Ken Hillman says, when he's treating someone who is going to die, one of the first questions he is inevitably asked is how long the person has to live. That is such a difficult question to answer with accuracy. I always put a rider at the end saying it's unpredictable. Even when we stop treatment, the body can draw on reserves we didn't know it had. They might live another day or 2 days or 2 weeks. All we know is, in long-term speaking, they certainly are going to die very soon. But he stresses that most expected deaths are not painful. You gradually become confused, you lose your level of consciousness, very, very true, and you fade away.
It's funny. Before my dad passed, he did say, "I'm going to fade away." He actually said that, and he had no belief in anything. He said, "I'm going to fade away." So,
It's really
how does a family, let's say you're with a loved one who's getting ready to pass, what's a good thing to talk to the person who's about to pass?
well. I tend to tell people that you really should be by their bedside if you would. Not all the time, but when you're there, make sure it counts and make sure it's enjoyable. So sometimes you might talk
Yes.
about their life, their lifetime, things they did earlier in their lives, the happy times, happy memories, bring them happy, joyful memories, and start speaking about the people that have passed over in those memories. Certain family members have passed earlier.
Yes.
Tell them about them, and so you can always ask for them, invite them here. So I like that.
I like that too.
And there's also stories, story time. So, you read a child a story before he goes to
Yeah.
sleep. But I tend to do that too with people that are preparing to pass. And a story can be anything that helps them feel better about themselves. A journey is good. So with a
Yeah.
journey, you're in a hot air balloon that goes over the waters, something along that line. Just taking them away and put that into their mind.
Mm.
And I always say to
Yeah.
somebody, very interesting, and people ask me, going back to that earthbound thing, if someone's like that, so how could they not be earthbound? What should I ask? Tell them to ask for their grandmother, because grandmother's already passed, obviously. So ask for that person. That spirit will come in and take them. So it's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens with people who, let's say, they have strong religious beliefs and they're passing?
Great question. Great
Mhm.
question. You know the answer is great question. So my belief is the Bible says, "In my Father's house are many mansions," if you
Right.
will, and I believe that to be the many different realms, the different worlds, worlds within worlds within worlds, which are made up of belief systems, people. So if there's a certain belief system, a certain religion or dogma, let's say Buddhism or Muslim or Catholicism, that community, that realm is made up of like-minded souls, and you go to that level which you've created with your belief system. So those Catholics will go with the Catholics, Muslims go with the Muslims, Buddhists go with the Muslims. Or if you're more open-minded, you'll go to that place, if you will. So that's really what it is, like attracts like. Down here, we're mixed up with all these different types of things to learn. But when we pass out of the body, you go to where you belong, which you've created based upon your belief
Right.
system.
And then once you're there, your belief system would probably alter, shift, and you would
Somewhat,
go to
somewhat.
other mansions.
Somewhat. I mean, just like down here, we can progress and evolve, or we
Yep.
can digress, or we can be slow to move on. I mean, it's all up to
Yeah.
us. I remember that I was working with an audience and doing a reading for this girl, and her aunt was coming through. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a spirit man coming close to me, and I knew it was this girl's father. And I said to him telepathically as I'm working, I said, "You can speak to her if you'd like." And his arms were folded, and he said, "I didn't believe in this in life. Why would I believe in it now?" 40. Yeah.
You get all kinds.
And what he did was he slowly watched, he observed the experience. And I kept pushing, "Want to give it a try? Want to give it a try?" And he did. He had confidence, and he came through to her, and it helped him move on. It helped him then believe.
Wow.
So
Wow. So he was a
one
little
thought,
stuck
he was a little stuck in his
in his
belief system.
beliefs. Yeah.
And our thoughts really help the spirit people. The Catholics have it right. They say prayers for those that departed, because remember, it's a mental vibration. So if we send, and especially I want to say suicide, if you will, people that sometimes get over there, they're kind of this place, painful maybe from the past, and sometimes the thoughts we have of love. If we send love to them, just send them love, they'll receive that love. So again, let's say someone who suicide or overdose, whatever it might be, and they're beating themselves up over there, our loving thoughts will reach them and open them up to start loving themselves, because we have love for them. It'll say, "Well, I'm worth it. I'm just loving myself. Then I must be worth their love. So I gotta love myself." It works.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Thoughts are so
send
powerful.
love.
Send love.
Yeah.
Send love. Best thing we can do for those who love the body. Send them love.
Yeah.
You don't have to confused. And a lot of people ask questions about dementia or Alzheimer's, like
Mhm.
what happens. And I wrote about this in my first book, Talking to Heaven. From my understanding, as we talked about earlier, the soul will go out of the body quite a bit. And the physical part, the mental deterioration continues, but the spirit is fine. It's fine. The soul is fine.
Well, it's
So
funny, James, because you and I have both done readings for people where the person, I'm thinking they're past, and you and I both have had this experience where we know they're past because we were talking to them, and yet they're in their body with Alzheimer's or dementia, and it's a little, and then all of a sudden we'll get a phone call, no, they just passed or something. It's pretty interesting.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. It happens that way. I mean, and there are people that are, will visit their loved ones. They have a dream of their dying mother or father who has Alzheimer's or dementia. And so I had a dream of them. I said, well, their soul was perfect, so they will come to you. Of course, they'd be able to do
Right.
that. So,
I have this is an interesting question. Charlene Testa says, is there a reason, or does the spirit, once it's past the body, follow, or does the soul follow the body? And I think until the body is either cremated or buried or.
It's a good question. It's a good question, an important question. And in the days past, if you will, the Catholic Church used to put that when someone died, they would, and they still do, 3 days. And mostly it's 3 days in most religions, I believe. They would put candles at the head and the foot of the departed, the casket, if you will, and they would do that for 3 days. The reason I put light candles there was so the spirit couldn't come back into the body.
As if it's going to make a mistake, try to get me in. I want to go back in. That's fascinating.
It's fascinating, and there's a word for it. I don't know what the word is, but there is an actual term. But there is, if you will, when we leave, of course, when we leave this vessel, the mindset of someone might feel they want to be close to it, and again, it's their mind. It's
a mindset.
It's a mindset. You're free of it. You don't need it. And I mean, burying is, to me personally, it's the worst thing possible. But they say that if you burn somebody and cremate them, that's the best way, because it actually will burn the coils, the ties, the actual physical ties there. That would be the
interesting.
Opposite. So cremation is the best, because it'll burn it right off.
It releases the soul quicker, or
yes, it releases. There's a name for it, Kelly, and it releases, and I believe that cremation is the way to go. I mean, gosh, when you think about all the land and the money that's involved with the funerals, it's crazy.
It's insane.
Come through, and I can't tell you how many. Especially the angry Italian fathers or whatever they were. Think, why just spend all that money on that damn funeral? I'm like, what a waste of money.
Right.
Save it for yourself.
Right.
Just like the boy come to his mother and he said, "Mom, I'm not down there on the ground. Do you really think I'm in the ground in that box down there? I'm next to you."
What are you doing?
The mindset. It's just so funny, isn't it?
Right. And I do know that souls that have passed, they'll love to go to their memorial.
Yes. Supposedly every soul goes to their memorial service or funeral. And it seems that women will go and see who sent flowers, and the men go and count the cars in procession, and how much is spent on the funeral, right? And I gotta say, I believe that to be true, because my father came to his funeral. I think I told this. We're looking at his body, the carcass, and we all said, "God, he looks pretty good with his teeth in." We put his teeth in. So about half an hour later, we're talking to the old principal from school days, which were, I couldn't believe this lady's still alive. This nun, 101 must be, I don't know. And my father came behind me and he said, "Thanks for putting my teeth in. I look pretty good." I heard him very clearly. So they all go to their memorials and funerals. I think that's also, from Spirit told me, it helps the newly departed to have that realization that they indeed did pass.
Yes, that's a really interesting observation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. It really does.
It does. Do you think that some souls have trouble recognizing that they have passed?
Yes, because as we were saying before, so when you pass out, there's no time. There's no linear time. So you might feel like you're just dreaming. You're daydreaming. And many times spirits come back, so I felt like I was in a dream. Like Olivia, same thing. So yes, that would be helpful to have that the finality there to show them. So yes, and so I've heard many times that guides would say to those who passed over, and they don't believe they're dead. They don't believe they're dead. I remember this boy that passed over in a car accident, and he passed over and he would not believe he was dead. And he says, "How can I be dead?" His grandfather came to get him. He loved his grandfather. And his grandfather said, "You're dead, Teddy. You're dead." He goes, "I can't be dead. I'm wearing the same clothes." And the grandfather said, "Because your memory has you dressed like that. But I passed over and you're with me." He goes, "But I feel so alive." He goes, "Of course, because you're not dead. There's no death. There's no death. There's no death.
Gosh.
Both not die."
Wow, that's just amazing. Um, what about music? For people be listening to music, do you think,
Yes,
to soothe them?
perfect. Anything that calms them down. Music
Yeah.
is fantastic. Music is great. Some people choose comedy to watch some old comedy on TV.
Oh,
Music is great. Poetry, reading to them is great. I
yeah.
also find that for, let's say, women who love makeup when they were in their days, putting makeup on would be
Oh,
great for them, combing their hair.
yeah.
They've come back and said to us many times, evidential details, thanks for putting makeup on me. They've talked about
Yes.
that, haven't they? So
The
they love,
last thing we did with my mom was we put on makeup for her.
it's such an honor, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
an honor for their
Had
lives.
to.
Yeah, it's an honor of their lives, and it really is. And how we treat them is very important. You have to think
Yes.
about it, that when they first pass out of that body, this new world, if you will, the things that we've done for them, they'll know it. They'll know it right away. So I think it's important that we keep positive, loving thoughts to everybody that's passed, and yeah,
Yeah.
get it back.
Yeah.
And no one ever dies alone, ever, ever, ever. No one ever dies alone. We all are met with someone that we knew, that we had a tie with, and we all will. And our animals too, by the way. Our animals come to get us. Our animals come and check on us. I've been many times the animal comes and gets the person passed over. The animal's there to do it. In my movie Talking to Heaven, the Ted Danson movie, there's a scene we put in where the animal helps a man pass over.
Mm,
So animals do indeed come get us. Yes.
yeah. How wonderful to be able to see our animals again.
It's great. It's like looking at a lens. It's so open. The expansiveness is just, it's there. It's just
Yeah.
that
Wow.
minute way of looking. It's gone. It's just this expansiveness, and you realize you're part of the wholeness of being, and you realize there's so much more. There's
There's
just so
so much more. Well, and let's talk about Friday night. We
this
have
Friday night.
quite a Friday night planned.
Yes, we do. It's going to be an evening of spirit messages for those who'd like to have messages. Not everybody gets the message, but you will get. Well, the messages apply to really everybody in the room. We found that out. 40 years, I found that out. We've had some great ones. Last one was incredible. Okay, tell everybody about your reading. Last time we did this, I brought through a father to this girl, and he said something about she had a card collection, yeah, then some other details, and then Kellee says,
I said, well, should I tell them how this happens? So before James and I do anything on on a Friday night or whatever night, I, like you, James, I open up and during the day, I pay attention to signs. I pay attention to things that might be unusual or messages, because the spirit world starts coming to me early that morning, and we don't go on until the evening, but
they'll use that. They'll use those.
they'll use that. So as I was putting my makeup on to get ready for our Friday night, the last one, my father came to me. My father, who didn't believe, like your dad, wasn't like this kind of a helper guy. And he comes to me, and I'm thinking, this is the oddest thing. And he whispers in my ear, Sandy Colfax. And I'm like, what? Who? What did you say, Dad? And he whispers it again. I said, this is the damnedest thing ever. And I said, oh, this is for today. Thank you, Dad, very much. And my dad toddled off, and we went on, and you get a soul. And I think I want to say he was a fireman, James. I don't know. You had all kinds of details about him. He was a
card collection. That's all I know.
baseball card collection. And then I went, oh, here we go. And then the man screams in my ear, Sandy Colfax, save that card, Sandy Colfax. And it turned out that Sandy Colfax, the baseball card, had fallen out in their living room floor that afternoon. And they
from papers she was going through, nothing to do with the card
papers.
collection. Separate from that, in the middle
Yeah.
of in the middle of these white pages, the card falls. I mean, come on.
Yeah. We have so much fun. Everybody just gasped at that one. That was so much fun.
That's a good one, really. But they're all good. And
They're
you'll
all
know.
great. And everybody gets a great message, for everybody. It's wonderful.
It's a wonderful way to look at life and death and continue on. It's a wonderful way to start going on your journey. I think the evening of spirit helps a lot of people to start their journey.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And there'll be a meditation, I think, at first.
Yes, the meditation, and you can go there on the Facebook page or YouTube, just like the Zoom call, like this, right?
Yeah.
So you can find that at vanprog.com. That's where you can find it and get tickets there. Yeah. So,
well, everybody. Well, thank you, James. See you next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Renee.
Bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
The James and Kellee Show.